this thing on? Because it's getting ready to be on.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bell Ringer. My name is Greg. Your guest name today is Dottie Gallagher, President and CEO of the Niagara Partnership. BNP is launching a Western New York Impact Survey to ask businesses how they've been affected by the COVID crisis. We also talk about resources available to those businesses and to individuals, and a bit about how we as consumers can help small businesses through these times. We do want to take a moment to pass along our condolences to those affected by the coronavirus crisis. I know it's impacting all of us pretty hard. This is our first remote podcast, so please be a little forgiving on the audio quality. But in general, we've been wowed by this community. We want to thank the heroes of the crisis, and I think this has really redefined who we think of as heroes. So thank you to those grocery store workers, those cleaners, those delivery drivers. We also have a blog up on our website called Buffalo Niagara's Kindness in Crisis that I constantly update with good news links that are coming out of our community. Other than that, thank you very much to Dottie for her time and for all their hard work throughout this. Thank you to you so much for listening. Stay home, stay safe, and we'll get through this together. All right, Dottie, thank you very much for joining us today, our first ever remote podcast.
That's right. We're social distancing our podcast. It's good.
So first of all, how are you doing? And I hope everyone's staying safe and healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't left my house. I'm following all the right protocols. Our staff, all the partnership staff is working remotely, and we were prepared to do that, and it's really gone off sort of without a hitch. So other than missing each other, it's gone really well, and we've been super busy.
Yeah, for those that don't know, we share office space with you guys at BNP.
That's right.
It's been weird not to see you every day. I think this is the first day of week 5 of working from home for us.
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, everyone makes a joke, a day in the pandemic is like a year, but it really is true. It feels like forever ago when we were all together. And I think it probably is going to be some time before we're all back in that space. Even when businesses start to reopen, I think it will look a lot different than it did before.
Yeah, I think so too. So for those that don't know, let's just start broadly. What is the Niagara Partnership as an intro?
So the Niagara Partnership is the regional chamber of commerce and economic development organization. We really focus on growing local businesses and also advocacy for business. We're in New York State, which is notorious for its business unfriendliness. So we do spend a lot of our time in advocacy and convening. It's interesting in this new world we're in right now. We've actually had to retool our entire staff just to address what businesses' needs are at this time. So our roots, the partnership, go back to the 1800s, believe it or not, as a trade board, and eventually the Greater Buffalo Chamber of Commerce, and then in the 90s, the Niagara Partnership. So we have a long-standing history with local businesses and really helping them be successful here in the region.
And since the coronavirus crisis has really taken charge here in Western New York, you guys have done incredible work keeping people informed and providing resources. And I want to get to all of that. But I want to start with, we were on a call last week together about your Western New York Impact Survey. Tell people a little bit about that and kind of the idea behind it.
Yeah, so the Western New York COVID Business Impact Survey is really a platform for us to understand 5 weeks into this thing where businesses are. A lot of other regions around the country have done business surveys, but quite honestly, I felt pretty strongly that until the stimulus package came out, businesses couldn't really realistically know what impact COVID was going to have on them. And being at 100% non-essential work from home, things are a little different here than in other parts of the country, or have been for a couple of weeks. So this survey is really designed to not only look at where businesses are, but where they think they're going to be in this, in terms of revenue, in terms of staffing, in terms of just their business operations. But it's really to help us create a platform so that the private and public sector can figure out what is the highest impact things that we can do, because it's different. The tourism related industries have a much different set of needs than manufacturing does, for example. So the way this survey has been built, and I'm super proud of the way it's been built, it will allow us to really slice and dice underneath business size, the kind of industry, to really look underneath the hood and say, what can we do as a public and private sector to come together to help businesses get back to work? So it's really to look at those gaps, because we know, we've done a series of events, virtual events, and it's not easy to figure out for each individual business what's the best opportunity for them. For example, we have some of our smaller businesses are very much underbanked. And so, taking advantage of the SBA, loans as an example, requires right now a commercial banking relationship that a lot of really small businesses don't have. So a strategy around how do you get those businesses connected to banking is a strategy for them. Manufacturers are having a really challenging issue with who are essential employers. How do we protect our workforce? Right. And so what are the interventions there? So we're looking for those gaps. That's what the purpose of the survey is, to really take the temperature of the region and then look for the gaps and then use the data to inform really government about what they can do or stop doing to help businesses survive.
Right. And there's a new economic development task force that has been formed for Western New York that I know you're a part of, along with our president and CEO, Tom Kucharski. How do you see this data informing the role of that task force and having all those people around the same table?
Well, that task force is really around Erie County, so which is the biggest sort of regional employer. But I think that task force should really and is going to focus on what is the county connected to. For example, they control the Workforce Investment Board. They have a big influence over the Erie County IDA. So it's really for them to really look at how can the county sort of structure supporting local businesses. And I think it'll be very informative to a more regional approach. I think, it's interesting. You should say, what is the survey going to do for them? Because when the county executive called me and asked me to help him put this together, he was like, we have to do a survey. I said, well, good news, we've actually written one. And so I think they're very anxious to really look at how that data cuts out. So for example, in the survey is anonymous for businesses to take. So if you're on a list of one of our 14 partner agencies, like Invest gave us a list of names, as did many of the local chambers of commerce, our own Buffalo Niagara Partnership list, the IDA lists. Once those lists come to us, the survey gets pushed out through a third party anonymously. So when a company says, I expect my revenue to be down 20% this year, we know that company is a manufacturer of a certain size, but we don't know who it is, right? So the companies have a level of anonymity there, but we have the visibility into the kind of company that is having that kind of problem. So that will be helpful for the county task force in that we ask for zip codes, so we can really look at businesses in that footprint, that geography, what is unique to what they need. And same is true for Niagara County, because as you know, with this survey, the government partners are Erie and Niagara County and the City of Buffalo and the City of Niagara Falls, in addition to those 14 partners, some of which go as far as Cattaraugus County. So it's really much more regional approach.
And you mentioned those email lists, which a lot of those partners helped cultivate. If someone is listening that is C-level or an owner of a small business that maybe happens to not be on one of those lists, how can they access this survey and make sure their voice is heard?
Thank you for asking that question. I would say. Well, the short answer is they can go to our website, thepartnership.org/impact survey, one word. and any company can go and sign up to get a copy of the survey. And essentially what will happen as they do that is they'll fill that out, and basically it's the same kind of information, their business name, their website, their phone number, and that those inquiries will come to the partnership. We will verify it's an actual business, because one of the things we're trying to do is make sure that the survey has a lot of integrity in terms of its data. And we don't want individuals taking the survey. It's really directed towards C-suite level people. So they will go through a verification process, and then they will get a survey pushed out to them within 24 hours. So we need those businesses that are not on those lists to take that survey, because as I told you earlier, our ability to sort of slice and dice this by industry, by geography, and all of that really depends on having enough people take it. Because as you know, Greg, if you don't have a big enough sample size, you can't really dig too deep. So we really, really want any business of any size, sole proprietors to major companies, to take the survey.
And we are recording, today is Monday, the 13th. It's hard to keep track of. We'll probably release either tomorrow the 14th or Wednesday the 15th. Just break down really quick timing for those that are interested. When do they have to fill out this form by?
So the survey opens tomorrow, and that intake form will be up tomorrow. If you're not on one of our lists, if you are connected to any of the 14 partner organizations, you'll probably get an email today from them saying the survey is coming on Tuesday. And you can request a survey on Tuesday. The survey will stay open until the 24th of this month. So really up until the 23rd, you can request a link to the survey. The survey will close, and we will get the data analyzed within that week. And then we'll have a series of events that will be open to the public on May 5th. I'm just looking at my date here. On May 5th, we'll have a couple of webinars for people to come and hear the results of the survey. And we'll share it with all the government partners and our 14 organizational partners as well. And
we at Invest will send out some of these links on social media, attach it in the blog.
Great, thank you.
Podcast as well for interested people. I mentioned at the top just the resources that BNP has been sharing and keeping people informed. I just want to talk kind of generally about some of those. You mentioned, SBA loans and the federal stimulus package, and really from the beginning of the first week we were working from home, you've had your resources page up. What are some of those resources for small businesses? I know they can find them on your website. Just a quick opportunity to plug and help some folks out.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I'll tell you, the challenge for many businesses is they're in survival mode, and it's sort of information overload to some degree. So what we've been trying to do, and by the way, we're doing this not just for our member companies, but for all local companies, is to really boil it down to what they need to know as business owners, and to try to simplify as best we can the language around it. So for example, a lot of people are in other places are doing how to complete the SBA loan. That's the SBA can do that. We don't need to do that. We held a webisode where we brought in a bank and an accounting firm to say, how do you know which of these programs is right for your business, right? It's a different approach, but really helping translate. And I have to say, over the past, whatever it is, 3 weeks, 4 weeks that we've been doing these sort of, webisodes, which by the way are all on the partnership.org/COVID-19. You can listen to any of them after the fact. We put the recordings up. But we've had over 1,200 people participate just in the past couple weeks. And we've got a lot of good feedback. So that's really where the lane we're trying to stay in is what's the best source of information, and how can we get that to you more clearly. So we're in the process right now of updating and reorganizing our resources page based on the survey, because the survey, at the end of the survey, we're asking people about what kind of technical assistance they may need, and it's all around many different things as we move forward, and so we're reorganizing those links to make that a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for? The buckets look like the technical assistance buckets. I'm trying to put my hands on that list of categories. So, for example, the categories that we know, human resources and workforce policy is an issue, remote team management, navigating the SBA loans, legal and government relief. A lot of people want to have accounting and tax questions, concerns about how they communicate, business operations, employee wellness, and then really business continuity planning. Just how do I get what's next? I mean, that's really where we're going to see, as the governor begins, in a few weeks' time to reopen our economy. It won't happen all at once. It will happen in parts and pieces, and then businesses will have a lot of questions at that point. But so we're really just trying to be where businesses are and be as helpful as we possibly can be.
Right. And as consumers, how can we all, you and I and all of our listeners, how can we support some of these small businesses? What are the ideas you and BNP are promoting?
Well, listen, the first thing they got to do is stay home. I'll not to sound like a broken record, but that's really what we need to do. But there are a number of really good job boards out there. The county and the city both have job boards about where there are available jobs. It's interesting. We talk about the amount of job losses that there have been, and they're obviously staggering and significant. But in many of these essential businesses, they need people, and they're having a hard time hanging on to people. In part because on the lower end of the wage scale, the unemployment offering is so rich. But people, they need people in order for us to deliver these services. So if you can work and you want to work, there are jobs out there. And both the county and the city have got really good links to those job boards. Visit Buffalo Niagara and some of the media companies have also have really good takeout places that have takeout and ordering out food, and that certainly would be a big support for the restaurant industry. I think, from my own personal philanthropy and all of that, I think the food bank and Feed More, they are really experiencing, crippling demand on their services. And so if you want to help people, nothing's better than, the smallest amount of money can be helpful. So I really think that's at this point, that's what we can do, and to follow guidance as best we can, because this is one of these hopefully once in a lifetime things where you have to slow down in order to speed up. And I think it's going to be extremely challenging here as the weather gets better to keep people home. But that's really what we have to do.
Right. We've seen companies, specifically manufacturers, switch gears through this and start to produce PPE or other relevant supplies to the coronavirus fight. How can interested businesses join that fight as we kind of linger through this the next few weeks?
Well, both the state and the federal government have put out some really good guidelines of the things that they're looking for, which we have pushed out to local manufacturers. Interestingly, we've had some good response. We've got a local printer actually that has created 60,000 disposable paper masks, mask kits actually, and we're working with them to distribute those in the community where they're most needed. So I think the businesses that, any manufacturer who's listening to this who needs a copy of those specifications can reach out to me through our website, and we'll get them to you. But I think that there's been a really good pickup. These are difficult things to ask someone to do. Production lines are set up in a very specific way, and so changing gears is challenging. You've seen how many of the distillers are now making hand sanitizer. And I think that's awesome. But this is a challenging thing. You can't just switch a production line overnight. Interestingly, we've got a small group of manufacturers that we've been meeting with, I'm going to say privately, just a small group, so they could talk to one another. And all the manufacturers that we are talking to, and there's probably 10 or so of them, have been deemed essential businesses. And they're having really big challenges around, how do you create a safe workspace, and have social distancing. The plant floors are not built for social distancing, and even getting not medical grade but PPE equipment for manufacturing floors is challenging. And through this group, we're even putting together a little purchasing co-op, and for thermometers and other things to try to help them help themselves, essentially. So this is such a fluid situation that we just are trying the best we can to help people. It's not easy.
Right. It's unimaginably difficult for everybody involved, but it is some of those stories you mentioned, the distillers and manufacturers that, they give you a little reason for optimism and show what our region is really all about.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, we in Western New York we're blessed in the sense that, our governor has been really clear about what needs to be done, and certainly New York City, being quite literally on the bleeding edge of all of this, and having a county executive who's also been very transparent with us about sort of the state of where we are. I feel grateful for that, and I think it really is incumbent on us to be able to support however we can support the organizational entities like Feed More that are really out there in the trenches. And we all have to do whatever it is we can do, and even if all that is staying home, that's still worth doing.
Right. Thank you so much for your time today and all your insights. We really appreciate not only that, but all you've done over the last few weeks at BNP. Before I let you go, we have a couple hard-hitting journalistic blizzard round questions. We need to keep our tradition up, and we'll end with levity. So,
all
if
right.
you were a flavor of ice cream, what would you be?
Coffee.
A book or TV show that you'd recommend?
Oh gosh, I'll go with TV shows because I've been watching a lot of them. Tiger King, got to do it.
Amazing.
And I just started with my daughter, New Girl, which I had never seen before, and it's really fun and perfect for this crazy world we're in right now.
That is my favorite show ever. I'm so glad you mentioned.
I never saw it until about 2 weeks ago. I'd never seen it, so now I'm at the end of season 1, so it's fun.
Great recommendation. Text or phone call?
Depends on the person.
Bills or Sabres?
Bills.
Hiking or skiing?
Hiking.
And last question, most important, chicken wings, drumstick or flat?
Medium with blue cheese. I don't care. Other than that, I'll eat them all. I'll take whatever's left.
That's a good answer. Thank you very much again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg. You guys keep up the good work. Appreciate it. Got a lot of work here to do. All right. Take care, all.
Bell Ringer is a podcast by Invest Buffalo Niagara, the region's privately funded, nonprofit marketing and economic development organization. Please rate this podcast, follow our social media channels, and read our blog at buffaloniagara.org for the best of Buffalo Niagara. Come grow your business with us.